Hi, Jessica. This is Grace. We just came back in the room
Oh,
and
sorry.
no, not at all. So I was just trying to get somebody to volunteer. So maybe we could find who that person would be and I can put the link to the board in the chat so that you can do that. We had Gail, we had Jan, we had Amy. I'm trying to remember. Would one of you guys want to jump in? There's the link.
Lindsay was the other
Oh,
person.
Lindsay. Yeah. Thank you. Did I miss anybody else, Jan?
No, I'll talk if you want.
Okay.
Somebody else wants to.
You can all jump in, Jan. Thank you for taking the lead.
Okay, can everybody see this board? Or just me?
I just opened it up. I think everybody can see it now, Jan. I will pop to the first question.
Okay, so I'll try to go through quick. Let's see. Was this the last question or the first question?
This is the first one with how impact blueprint success and oral health to overall health.
Okay. I don't see that, but let me see if I can go back. Okay, I got it. I went back. I think we talked initially about how communication it's really the whole deal. If you don't have good communication internally, especially, and then externally, you're just stuck with people, like Gail said, she feels lost right now, and there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think as soon as this gets, solidified, the blueprint, and it's complicated. Communication is complicated, and we never really have had a good platform we've had platforms, back to Basecamp and Socius and all that, but we really have to figure out what is going to be the best thing for us to use and make sure we have good channels in place to go. Like, I think the whole thing is just seeing where we are once the blueprint group says, this is who we are and this is how we suggest that we're structured. And it is, it's good to see one another, but it's irregular. And so we have a lot of stuff to do usually. And between the groups, there isn't good communication. So that all needs to really get in concrete going forward. And the challenges, the second question, getting actions to move forward. We have to identify what we have and what we'd like to have moving forward, tactically and different types. There's so many layers of communication and how we can, kind of weave those so you don't get overwhelmed. I mean, that's, if you remember back to Basecamp, that was overwhelm. And then somebody said that as far as the engagement piece of this, that's also two different things. Initial engagement is different than ongoing engagement. I think that's something to really make sure we have on separate plates. Assess the effectiveness and value of the different platforms too. We've used 3 at least that we know of. And, if we do a scan to figure out where we're going, make sure we look at the ones that we've used, maybe we aren't using them right. Let's see, the last one, what's the role, formal leaders?
If we can just get a couple quick highlights, Jan.
Yeah, now that we have the blueprint and structure, we need to have it be it and then kind of move on.
Perfect.
The cross-cutting, all of that.
Thanks so much for that update, Jan. Could we hear from the data platform group? I believe this was the group with Valerie. Does anybody want to share their feedback?
I don't remember everything that was said. Do we have, oh, there's the Jamboard.
All right, I'm just going to ask for a quick couple of highlights since we are going to show the board. We want to give every group a chance to chat. I'm going to kick back to your first question.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Katie Batani. I can share a couple of things quickly. Jessica, can everyone can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We talked, of course, data is complicated as well. We talked about, I think the first thing is like not reinventing the wheel and looking at what's already existing. So that first year identifying existing oral health data repositories. So we talked about ASTDD's new National Oral Health Data Portal and other sort of publicly available data sources, not reinventing, but trying to think about how we can expand and then look to other types of data sources, you know, by state that may be unique to a specific state where you can get further information. And I think also maybe it was a challenge, but trying to really have clarity around what we're talking about when we say data. Is it utilization data? Is it Medicaid data? Is it, you know, various sources? Is it oral health status data? Is it, you know, there's all different types of data. So what exactly is open wanting to focus on so that we can have some parameters around that to not, so it doesn't get too wild and crazy, and maybe having a little bit more clarity and definition around that. Another challenge, obviously, and varies across states, is Medicaid data and having access to that. So we know that in some states that's not as much of a challenge. In other states, it's a very big challenge. And I think, you know, the role that we can play as formal leaders is we can help in that discussion around tightening and clarifying and having some discussion about what's meaningful and how we can work together to identify the low-hanging fruit and then discuss other types of data that we're interested in having access to. So I hope that covered it.
Thanks so much, Katie. And then let's see, policy. Couple of quick highlights for each of your groups.
If nobody else wants to do it, I'll just give 3 big highlights that I took away. So in our group was Aoife, Stacy, Bridget, and Carla. And one of the things was that in the ROC teams, it would be really helpful to be able to hear from all the different states about what they're doing and find a common policy thread and then bring it to the network, because it's great to hear what's going on in individual states, but where can we find commonality and policy pathways from those regional teams. The second one is it's great to know the policy, but more importantly is what was the path to get to the policy, so having toolkits. And 3 is really working in small groups to really talk through things, because it's really easy on the policy level to, when you compare yourself to other states, to feel really bad about yourself. So it's best to be able, you know, really to have an intimate opportunities for intimate conversation about things, so that we can really dig deeply into issues.
Thanks so much, Marla, for that quick policy update. Let's see, who would like to speak for the delivery models group?
I'm going to nominate Beatrice.
I'm getting a lot of airplanes going around because I live in a military zone. So it would be good if somebody else could do it.
So our group, I was in that group, I'll just chat so we can keep our stuff moving along today. We talked about wanting to make sure that we look beyond just the cost, but the people as resources, bringing folks who are already doing the work, bringing them to the table, learn from them, tweak what we can. And the different models that are out there that maybe there have been issues with, how can we tweak those so they're still usable? That was kind of our overall health and oral health connection, some successes, some challenges. We said, of course, we want to make sure that we have plans of how do we carry them forward. Difficult to put into action what we have in writing. So what would be the next steps? Not just written reports, but teamwork and commitment are essential to making any of these action steps a successful thing. And then we had lots of ideas of how formal leaders could be involved with the delivery models function. One of them I loved was reaching out to young dental professionals, make sure they know about open, and encouraging them to become advocates in order to make change for oral health, and how to be a part of that to make a difference as they're starting out in their careers. And then we also, discussed there's lots of formal publications out there, not just national. There's a lot of state dental journals and newsletters that perhaps people aren't seeing that information. We want to make that accessible. So we had a great conversation in this group. And then equity and accountability. Just like 2 quick highlights. You don't even need to share your Jamboard.
If other members don't want to jump in, I'll quickly, if you wanted to share the Jamboard, I will just quickly share that we discussed that equity and accountability have to and do overarch our network. And that we need to make sure to pay attention to the grassroots and make sure that they are adequately, we didn't use the word nurtured, but that they are nurtured and funded adequately so that we can do this work.
So very quickly, I'm going to pop up the equity and accountabilities Jamboard. Thank you, Rebecca, for that quick update. And now if someone from the Development Hub, if you would give us a debrief of what your group talked about. And here's your Jamboard in case you need a refresher.
Thanks. 2 of our members were not able to readily access Ring Central, so if Felice is willing to share, I would volunteer her.
Oh, thank you for volunteering. But yeah, one of the things that for success of the oral health, we were talking about that we need funding to move the work forward. And it's important to find leadership in communities to do the work. And so and we need money from the top down, meaning that we were hoping, because we had discussion around who would really generate the dollars to do this work. And so we were hoping that it comes from the top down to help to make sure that it can be successful through the states without us putting that stress on trying to find financial resource to do the work. And our challenges.
They're all on the same page. Sorry, that was my bad.
No worries.
So, connecting support, connecting national and state, vice versa, just connecting the resources and making sure that people have the information. And, as we said, the dollars was important, but we were making sure, our concern was making sure that everybody was on the same page. And we talked about how well the blueprint was created, that our hopes is making sure that it will move through the system the way it was created and understood. So articulating that goal will be very, very important.
All right, Felicia, thank you for that policy update or development update. We absolutely love hearing everyone's ideas, and we will be taking all of this information back to our groups moving forward. At this time, I'm going to hand it back over to Rebecca, and she's going to lead us forward for a while.
Great.
Thank you, Jessica. This is really exciting to hear everyone's ideas, and we will be taking all of this back to various corners of the network and incorporating these this input plus the input from the formal leaders 2 weeks ago, that the first meeting, and I am sharing my screen here. And we will come back to everyone with a plan that we can be proud of to move forward. So in that vein, I am going to view a slideshow. There we go. And talk about the process that I have been facilitating with a group of, I invited all of the formal network leaders to come and participate in the planning to draft the 2023 work plan. And at the same time, Francis was leading the lever leads through the process that led to the proposed reorganization that Jessica shared. Francis has discussed this process as parallel strands on a double helix, which is an image I really love. And now we're tying it all together to get to a great place. I think I'm really excited and hope you are too. So I just described a lot of the process before I even got to this slide. So this is just what I just said. And we're going to look now at some of the process of the work plan planning group and the survey, which hopefully you all have answered, and a quick SWOT analysis that we did together as our group to dive deeper into the network strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. And at this next part of our meeting, we are seeking input from you and reflection to further refine our SWOT analysis and to look at the survey results and get some feedback from you, which I'm going to take back tomorrow to the work plan working group to figure out what our network should look like and our formal leader structure should look like. And our work plan is kind of coming together, but to finalize that and get it back out to the network. So just a quick reminder about the iterative way that networks work, because I think it's really important to keep remembering that we're not hierarchical by nature. We have lots of planning meetings. We take it, we go back and forth with each other. These are the words. This is the picture of how we hope that we work. We open with ideas, opinions, or information. We narrow it down. The information is organized for better understanding and it's evaluated and further refined. And then we close with specific proposals and we make agreements with each other and we just keep going. I love this picture of the accordion planning in the bottom right-hand part of the screen here, because unlike linear planning where you plan and you make a plan and then you spend a lot of time selling constituents on the plan or your group or your organization on the plan, and then you have some time to implement it. We do things a little bit differently. We plan and plan and plan and plan. And while we're planning, we're selling ourselves and each other on the plan, and we're refining the plan and we're keeping and going, but we're basically selling while we're planning. And so the selling phase is much shorter, and then we get this long implementation phase. So that's what I hope we're doing here and what we've been doing together for over a decade as a network. And some of us have been here longer or shorter, but this is the process that we're jumping into. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about how we work? So you can just put them in the chat box. And I will fit there. So this is the SWOT analysis that we did pretty quickly as our planning group. And then we brought it to in this accordion planning, we brought it to the NOCT, the National Oral Health Connection team, and had some conversation about it and have some notes that we'll use to refine this. And then we brought it to the network leaders meeting 2 weeks ago and again today. We will send you back out into smaller breakout rooms to have deeper conversation, but I just want to move your beautiful smiling faces so I can see this whole thing while I talk about it. So I'm just going to leave it up so you can take a quick look about what we saw about the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and network threats, and see if there's anything you all want to highlight or something that's interesting to you or any questions you have.
I have a question that may or may not have anything to do with anything. So this is the second meeting of 2.
Yep.
So I'm assuming the first group did all the same work. So there's going to be somebody that compiles all this before tomorrow, Rebecca, in our meeting.
Yep, I have. I am not going to focus on the SWOT part, but we will do that. Yes, there is lots of analysis, and I sent an email out to our work group yesterday with the plan for tomorrow, and plan on spending a good bit of time with all of this tonight as well. So, but back to this, the network strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. I really thought it was, I think that one of our strongest strengths, and so I just want to highlight it. I don't know if you get to see my my arrow there, but I love how we have truly diverse representation in lots of ways of that word, and that has been deliberate and taken many years and requires constant nurturing. But we have strong representation from grassroots, middles, and tops, different organizations by profession and geography, bringing lots of different, and then we have our own diversity of identities and experiences in the world that bring our multiple diversities and perspectives to our oral health equity work together. So I want to highlight that. No one else does it like this. So anything else before we move on? You will have plenty of time in your small groups to discuss this further. Okay. So here is what we learned in the surveys. And in reviewing this, I want to point out in this, Francis and I spent too long talking about whether we should have a 3-point Likert scale or a 5-point Likert scale. And I will just share. So we ended up with 5. 1 to 5, with 3 being in the middle, 5 being super yay, 4 being also strong. And when I look at Likert scales like this, I kind of balance the purple on top of the green, right? And so I look at people who think things are valuable and highly valuable, often grouped together. So want to invite you to also do that geometry in your head if you find it helpful. And so when I looked at this, I saw that the 2 most valuable things of these 4 that respondents felt was that regular work group meetings were super important, and that connecting with members outside of work group meetings is also important. And less so, but still important, are other open meetings with intersecting content and subject matter. So my brief reflection is that people like digging in where they like digging in, and that's what brings them meaning. And maybe some network weavers can help bring that together and do. This was a question about our fabulous staff, for whom I am grateful all the time. What roles are most important for formal leaders that the staff plays? And when I look at this, it says to me that everything they do is really super important. But again, I see when I look at this, we're all doing the things we want to do, and we're digging in where we're doing them. And when we're answering the questions, you know, weaving with other parts of the network is still important. And I would say from a network perspective, it's really important, but that each of us has our own perspective and is not seeing the network weaving quite as much. Do other people see that kind of like that, or have any thoughts? And I can't see the chat box at all, so if there's anything in there I should see, someone should let me know. What are the most important resources and activities that help Open achieve its goals? And again, you can, by stacking the green and the purple together. We love our in-person meetings and convenings. The take 20s, 30s, 60s, we should maybe take another look at them, I think, to figure out if they are useful or not in our world. We also, looking at the second line, I think looking at this, I'm seeing that it's pretty important for us to have our stipends in order to help our participation, that our employers maybe like to know that we're being paid at least for a little bit of our time, so that they allow us to reserve it and give it to the network, although many of us do more than that. We love our network building opportunities too. So what kinds of network building and capacity building activities would you find most valuable? And like, this tells me we picked the right things to put on the survey, because, you know, it's all pretty, you know, nothing's not helpful, but the connections to national content experts, super helpful. The only things that anybody said were not valuable at all are social media campaigns and monthly update calls. So there's that. And I think we're going to share the slides. Yeah, we can share the slides, or we can share at least these slides so that we can reflect on what we think about the network. As a leader with Open, what would you need to support your continued participation in the network? And again, everything is important, but two standouts are that if we're going to have in-person meetings, we need our way paid for in order for us to be able to participate. And that stipends are incredibly helpful for us. As a member of Open, how relevant are these statements for your continued involvement? And again, we're here because we like Open. And the folks who planned the survey are part of this meeting right now. And so not surprising that we picked some questions that resonate with so many people here. One thing that we might want to work on as a network is that we don't really think that alignment with Open builds our own credibility and influence in the field. So our network does a lot of things for us, and it strengthens us in our in what we do, but the rest of the world maybe doesn't know enough about open yet for us to perceive our alignment as building our credibility and influence. So I just want to acknowledge, I sort of joked when I took on the role of facilitator for our 2023 plan, that funding being what it is, my job was to create a plan for very little funding to lots and lots of funding. And so in this planning process, what I see us really doing is prioritizing what is most important to us, so that when our funding situation becomes more clear, which as with all things, it's always changing, that we can very quickly know what the network's priorities are and plug this money in here and that money in here, and just have the list of priorities from the network so that we can make that easy. So I just wanted to acknowledge as we go forward that funding is always uncertain in nonprofit worlds as we are here. So we're going to send you into small groups again, and I'm so glad that Jessica ran the tutorial for how to use the Jamboards, because I'm so new at them. And we're going to ask you, there'll be 2 pages on your Jamboards in your breakout groups. And I don't know, Bianca, if you've already set them up, or if we can set them up a little bit bigger than the last one, maybe, 6 people instead of 4 in a group might be nice. And what are your key takeaways from the network SWOT analysis? And then list your top 3 ideas for improving formal leaders' impact and structure. And we will be looking at all of this as we open and close our accordion and move forward in the last 6 weeks of the year. So any questions as Bianca is putting together our breakout groups?
We'll be able to get to the SWOT analysis.
It is pasted on the Jamboard. Yep. So what were your, this was probably the first time, I'm sure it was the first time almost all of you saw the survey results. I first saw them completely last night because it closed yesterday. So you heard some of my first thoughts. What were some of your first thoughts?
Basically, I think that amplifying the value of our network and publicizing nonstop what we do is very important. We need to increase, the recognition of all the work that takes place here.
Yeah, that totally. And I see that we're all being asked to join rooms. So off we go. How long do we have?